Hello, Book 2. I'm playing hooky a little more. I have a writing assignment. It landed on my metaphorical desk just this afternoon, and it's a little tedious. It's turning out to be more tedious than I thought, and I'm not going to let this editor down, so I am going to deliver, and I have quite a bit of time left to do that, 9 or 10 hours. I'm going to need a lot of that, but I'm making another video just because I don't feel like doing it. So it'll be a 4-video day. Sorry about that. But it's a video that I wanted to make anyway. It's a tag, and it doesn't feel right to do Sunday without a tag. And it's a tag that is a bit of a tradition on BookTube, and one that I really like being a tradition. I saw it on Adam's channel, Mementomori, where he did a tag taking stock of his reading here at the midpoint of the year. And then I saw Juan at JustJuanReader do the same thing, and refer to it as the mid-year Freakout tag, which is what I remembered doing and had fun doing last year. So I wanted to do that again. It's a tag where basically it's a whole bunch of prompts to help you take stock of your reading in the present year so far, under the unbelievable realization that we're halfway through the year already. So I want to start off. This is going to be a title-heavy video for those of you who have your Goodreads or Amazon open while you're watching. And I don't have any visual prompts at all. I wasn't going to go herring around the apartment for stuff, so I will just insert pictures right here with it. Just kidding. So question number 1 starts off with a bang. It's the best book that you've read so far in 2018. And I can't limit this to just one book. I'm going to pick at least one from fiction and nonfiction, keeping in mind, and I'll remind you at the end of the video as well, that this is all preliminary. It's all provisional, and it will all be set right at the end of the year when I do my year-end roundup of the books that came out in America in 2018, good and bad, in many different categories. That year-end list, which you can find on Open Letters Review, but which is my literary blog, Steve Reads, will be definitive. That's when I will set my thinking in stone for the end of the year. Right now, this is touch provisional. These are things that I feel right now in the midway point. They could be knocked. All of them could be knocked. So question number 1 is best book you've read so far in 2018, and I want to split that into fiction and nonfiction. And fiction, and this one is vulnerable, I admit. It's Richard Powers' book, The Overstory, his latest novel. A long book about trees, in which at several points the trees make their opinions known, and it's got a cast of human characters that fall on various points of the spectrum of ecological conservation or awareness, and it's got some wonderful, wonderful writing in it, but I don't know about it. I read it, I reviewed it, but I am not settled on it at all. I actually am not even 100% sure that it isn't ultimately a silly book, which is unthinkable for Richard Powers, but nevertheless, in terms of the impression it's made on me and in terms of how long I've been thinking about it, it's definitely number 1. And number 2 for nonfiction is also going to be fairly obvious if you've been watching this channel. It's Carbon Ideologies by William Vollmann. His 2 800-page volumes on mankind's relationship with fuels, nuclear, carbon, whatever, non-renewable fuels. A disastrous relationship as far as he's concerned, and a tragic one in that its end is written before it begins. And I thought it was amazing. I just thought it was amazing. I kept thinking, when I read it through the first time, I kept thinking, okay, well, surely this is going to descend into tedium any minute now. And it doesn't. It just doesn't. I have heard rumors since I read it the first time. I've just finished rereading it the second time in order to write about it. And in the time since then, I have heard rumors that despite the fact that he churns out books all the time, he's actually been working on this book for a very long time while he's been working on other books. It definitely feels that way. So those are the 2 top picks so far here at the midpoint: Carbon Ideologies and The Overstory. Question number 2 is the best sequel. That's easy. I read it even though it's months and months down the line. It's by Linnea Hartsuyker. It's The Sea Queen, her Viking epic historical novel sequel to The Half-Drowned King. Just wonderful. just wonderful. I pray for the day down the line when I can get the whole trilogy in pretty trade paperback and a nice box set. Oh, what I wouldn't give. Question number 3. A new release you haven't yet read yet, but want to. For fiction, it's a YA novel by Tara Isabella Burton called Social Creature. It's got quite a bit of buzz to it, and it's been mentioned in a lot of booktube channels that I don't particularly watch. Nevertheless, it's mentioned elsewhere as well, and I haven't got to it. I have a copy, and I just haven't got to it. And for nonfiction, it would be Amity and Prosperity by Eliza Griswold. Her Amity and Prosperity is her book about a small town in Appalachia that's rent with the opioid crisis and poverty and fleeing industry. It looks really good, and a couple of people whose opinions I really respect, one of whom has already written a review of it, one of whom has a review forthcoming about it, tell me that it's well worth my time, so I definitely want to read it. I just haven't got to it yet. And then question number 4, most anticipated forthcoming releases. As you might have been able to tell from watching this channel, I eagerly anticipate an enormous number of things. My childlike enthusiasm for books is absolutely not grown over or grown stale in the 28 years that I've been reading. So I made a list of 5. five titles here that I am looking forward to. Haven't got them yet. Want them very much. Number 1 is All That Heaven Allows, which is Mark Griffin's biography of Rock Hudson. I've heard nothing about it at all, but the subject is utterly fascinating and tragic and heartbreaking. I want to read the book, definitely. And it would also fit with the pattern of 2018, where the most knockout biographies that I've read have been outside my wheelhouse of comfort. And this would definitely follow. And I'm now expecting, every time I get a biography like that, I'm expecting that it's going to be that good. Then number 2 is Intensity. And that is the latest in the romance author Sherrilyn Kenyon has a YA series called The Chronicles of Nick Gautier. He's a teenager with a quippy mouth and lots of superpowers and a great attitude. No idea why these things haven't been adapted on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or TV even. I have no idea why they haven't. They'd be fantastic. But I have a sweet tooth for the series. I just love it. And the new one is called Intensity. And I've been following the series. I can't imagine what's going to happen in this new volume, considering what happened in the last one. So I'm eagerly awaiting it. Then the next 2 are comic books, comic book collections. I've mentioned on this channel that I don't really buy individual ongoing comic books. I tend to buy collections once they come out. And there are 2 collections coming out at the end of the year that I very much want. One is the hardcover Omnibus collecting the run on Marvel's The Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Mike Allred. Weird, trippy stuff. Not at all traditional. Not at all normal for The Silver Surfer or for any other comic that I know of. I love Mike Allred's artwork. He's an acquired taste, but I did acquire it, and I now get what he's doing, and I love it. And there's something weird and otherworldly about the way Dan Slott writes The Silver Surfer. So the collection, I'm sure, is one that I will read and read and reread. And then the other one is the Marvel universe of John Byrne. John Byrne is a fan-favorite writer and artist. Doesn't do a whole lot of work for DC or Marvel anymore. But he has done a massive amount of work in the past. And there's a big, fat anthology of more of his collected work coming out, where he teams up with a whole bunch of really great writers and a whole bunch of really great little moments, little stories, even larger stories, that the type of thing where you read, back when I read individual comics issues and I went to the comic shop every week and I got a stack of issues and whatnot, you read all of that stuff and it flows in and out, and some of it you remember and some of it you don't. And it's amazing how many of those John Byrne runs in various titles are things that stick in your mind that are really good. And what I'm gathering is correct, a lot of them are in this issue. So I'll get it, definitely. And then the last one, probably my most anticipated book of the year so far, the thing that I want the most, is the Hebrew Bible by Robert Alter. 3 fat volumes in a slipcase by a remarkable translator. Blows the cobwebs off everything that you think you know about biblical translation. And he's done the first 5 books of Moses. He's done the Deuteronomic books. He hasn't. This is the whole thing. This is the whole of the Hebrew Bible in a beautiful slipcase edition. So I'm looking forward to that one and everything. The publisher has told me that it's mighty expensive to produce, and God, just looking at pictures of it, I can believe that. They have promised me that I'm getting a copy, but it doesn't look like there's going to be anything in the way of an advance copy of any kind. I think they're just going to print it once, send it out for the Christmas season and to libraries, and just call it a day. But I will snap up a copy and write the heck out of it. Question number 5 is the biggest disappointment, and I know this is lame, but I'm going to pass on this one because things are still. It's only the middle of the year, and I'm talking just about 2018 releases here, and almost all of them are still moving around in the background. I will feel much more certain listing biggest disappointment at the end of the year when I make a list of the 10 worst works of fiction and the 10 worst works of nonfiction of the year. That list I will be sure of, but right now, I'm not confident enough to say that something has been a big disappointment so far. But question number 6 is the biggest surprise, and that I am confident of, is the Stephen King novel that I actually didn't hate. His latest book, The Outsider, which I thought had long stretches in it that were very effective as a novel, just as a novel. I didn't memorize every jot and tittle of the previous books set in this particular shard of the King universe, like a lot of his fans have. So I came at the Outsider largely cold, and didn't miss a beat at all. Didn't feel like that at all for any of the rest of the book. So, biggest surprise, liking a Stephen King novel? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So one of you actually made a comment, I think it was on Twitter. It was on this channel where somebody said, "What's next? Cats?" I feel exactly the same way. I don't even know who I am anymore. Let's see here. Question number 7 is favorite new author or debut. And I have 2 debuts here. One is We That Are Young by Preti Taneja, a sprawling, very ambitious family drama set in modern-day India. And the other is Demigods by Eliza Robertson, which is set in the 1950s, and in which a young woman meets a young boy when their families are brought together, and then it sort of follows them through the twisting paths of their various subsequent meetings. It is gorgeously written on a sentence-by-sentence level, but it's also really disturbing. You don't, by the time you're halfway through with the book, you're honest. I was honestly sitting there saying, okay, I thought I knew what this was. Now I have no idea what's going on. And I don't understand anything at all about this except how enthralling it is. And one other thing, which is that the author has some serious issues. and she's working out her issues in just the way that I want extremely talented writers to do. I don't want them to write in their journal and then share the pages only with their therapist. If you're an extremely talented novelist, work out your issues on your novel. Write to me. That's what I want, because that it benefits everybody. I said that about Dostoevsky, and I say it now. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush. I'm going to stick with my old answer, which is Steve Partridge. Question number 9, newest favorite character. That would be hapless, glasses pushing up, would-be artistic director Jervis Welt from Ned Bowman's fantastic comic novel Madness is Better Than Defeat, which came out earlier this year. Jervis Welt has dreams of directing great movies. He's a little too far in his own head to really do that. But I loved how Bowman makes him both severely maladroit socially and also normal in a lot of ways. I love the combination. He's a very easy character to remember. So he gets the nod right now. Again, this is all provisional. Question number 10, a book that made you cry. That would be Spring by Karl Ove Knausgaard, which I read 2 weeks ago. And I cried for the state of Western civilization. Question number 11, a book that made you happy. This is fairly easy. It's by Roz Burak. It's a kid's picture book called Truck Full of Ducks. And you'll just never guess what it's about. I loved it. I wish I'd kept a copy. I volunteer spend time with some kids at a pediatric hospital here in Boston, and I'd bring stuff to read to them. And when I brought Truckful of Ducks, I brought it with a bunch of other kids' books, and we read them all, and we had a great deal of fun. And then at the end, it was clear the other books they could take or leave, but they really wanted to pass around Truckful of Ducks amongst themselves, so I just gave it to them, and I haven't been back. But I know what these kids are like. I doubt it survived. But one way or another, I'm sure I'll get another copy someday. And also, those of you who are in bookstores looking for recommendations for a kid's book, go up to the surly clerk with hair in their eyes and a monotone with an earpiece who doesn't really want to talk to you, and say, "Excuse me," and they go, "Yeah," and you say, "Could you look up Truckful of Ducks, see if you have it, and if you don't, could you order me a copy?" And maybe they'll stand up. Maybe not. They'll probably just stay draped on the counter. It's tough being 18 years old. But they might do it. You never know. Let's see here. Question number 12. Favorite book-to-film adaptation? So far in the year, the clear winner for me is Ready Player One, which I thought was a far better movie than it was a book, as is usually the case. And there's another example that I think Juan mentioned, and I think a number of people will probably mention it too, which is Love, Simon, the movie adaptation of Simon and the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Burton. Martinelli, I forget exactly the author's name, but one way or another, the movie was much better than the book, even though the studio, for some reason, decided to cast a balding 30-year-old as Simon, or at least the kid that they got to play him so obviously wants to play a junkie in the next really serious, gritty movie where he shoots a prostitute at the end, and he's just got this. We're never going to see this kid play a squeaky clean role again, never. And we're also, you can see it in his face, you can see it in the waxy texture of his skin, you can see it in his body language, you can see it in the fact that his hands are always looking for something to do, one particular something to do. This is obviously the last movie we'll ever see him star in which he isn't chain-smoking. He just couldn't do it in this movie, but every other movie he'll just decide, especially since I think Simon did well in the theaters, so he'll have a broader pick of roles. One way or another, I'm going to go with Ready Player One. What a movie. Oh, boy. And looking forward, I have my hopes pinned on, there's a movie coming up later in the year called Mowgli, which is about Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book stories. And it doesn't look like it's an adaptation of the Disney movie, which was the live-action movie that came out a little while ago. It was a live-action version of the Disney movie. When I don't want that. I want a movie version of what Kipling actually wrote, instead of a singing orangutan. So we'll see. We'll see one way or another. It looks kind of impressive, so we'll see what it's like. I'll report back. Let's see here. Prompt number 13 is favorite review that you've written so far. At first, I rebelled because I tried to make my review. I don't have any talent, like with a capital T and italics, like so many other people do. I'm just an Old Bailey hack, so I like to think that my reviews are sort of an even level of quality. But in terms of the accomplishment of a review, I'm going to maybe go with Top Incomes of France in the 20th Century by Thomas Piketty, the author of Capital. Capital did so well for its publisher that they actually got somebody to translate Piketty's his earlier book, which is 1,100 pages long, just a brick study of wealthy people, the top incomes in France in the 20th century. A mind-bogglingly off-kilter and dusty subject that I think I managed to make a pretty readable review out of. And I don't think a lot of people are going to review the book at all. If they are, I don't think they could do it as fast as I did it and in only 700 words. So I might pick that one, but I'd like to hope that all of my reviews not only read very much the same, but are the same moderately high level of entertainment value. I'd like to think whether you read me in the Vineyard Gazette or the Christian Science Monitor or Open Letters Review, where I do a lot of reviews every week, that you'll see a uniform level of quality. I would like to hope that would be true. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book you've seen so far. And that would be National Geographic, the Photo Arc. Their latest volume in the Photo Arc series is about birds. It's where a photographer puts a black backdrop in a photo studio and brings up the actual animal in front of the backdrop. I don't know how they did it with some of the animals in the Photo Arc. The bird version is a little more doable because birds are a little more handleable, but the pictures are unbelievable. They're just unbelievable. You are seeing these creatures from an inch away, relatively unguarded, in incredible detail. I just can't recommend it high enough. And one of it and the Photo Arc before it, some of the only books that I would ever on this channel say, put aside the money, go to the bookstore and just buy one for yourself, because you're going to be looking at it for the rest of your life. And then question number 15 is books that you need to read before the end of the year. And I know this answer is, I give the same answer last year. I would give the answer any year, because books are my beat. New releases in America are my beat. I not only do them professionally, but they have become the object of almost all of my bookish curiosity. So my answer to this question is basically all of them. Not every book that's coming out between now and the end of the year, but all the major releases in all the major genres, which is going to amount to a large amount of books, but nevertheless, right at the moment, today, as of this video, I have read 512 books in 2018. Barring unforeseen circumstances, or a week with the flu or anything like that, I'm hoping that I have another 500 to go this year. So that is, well, do the math, divvy that up. Let's say you have 10, 15 genres, 10 or 15 books each. I'm hoping that I can get a large chunk done, but I jotted down some books that I really want to get to. Some of them I mentioned here before. Andy Roberts' new book on Winston Churchill, which I'm looking forward to. That's one of the biographies that I'm looking forward to. Also, Richard Brookhiser's forthcoming book on Chief Justice John Marshall. And there's one other biography. Oh yeah, so A Soldier, Priest, and God by F.S. Neiden, a new biography of Alexander the Great. But there are other things too. The new issue of Spectrum. Spectrum is a large paperback that comes out once a year that collects the best fantasy art from that year. It's always eye-popping. I just love it. And the new one comes out before the end of the year. I think it comes out in the early winter. And so I never miss a volume of Spectrum. But I think I mentioned something else here too. Oh yes, the author is David Goodman, and the book is the autobiography of Mr. Spock from Star Trek, from the original Star Trek. It's a follow-up to a book that came out years ago called The Autobiography of James T. Kirk. This is the autobiography of Mr. Spock, where it drawing on the original series, drawing on all that's canon, drawing on some of the most prominent and most repeated non-canon stuff. This book will be Mr. Spock telling his own story with all sorts of neat visual aids, documents, diary entries, that sort of thing. And needless to say, since my Spock will never appear again on the big screen, since my Spock is gone, and is unlikely even to appear in a novel, I'm looking forward to this book very much. Very, very much. I loved the autobiography of James Kirk, and what I wouldn't give if this author, I can't remember off the top of my head if David Goodman did the Kirk volume, but one way or another, if this publisher did this for all of the major characters, I'll get them all, that's for sure. So that's it. That is the mid-year book freakout tag. And I'm going to tag a bunch of people, but I'm not going to do it here on camera. So I'll because I don't know who's done this and who hasn't. I'll just leave tags down below with links, and just hope that people do it, because this tag is really fascinating. Whether you read new releases or not, it's really fascinating for all of us to pause, sort of get together in this crowded friendship that we have, and just sort of share notes on what we've done so far. I especially think it's fascinating when the same book crops up more than once. But even when it doesn't, I love it. I love hearing what people have seen, what they've experienced so far this year. And also, whether or not your year is going well, reading-wise. That would also be fascinating to hear. But anyway, I'll leave all the links down below. So I'm going to wrap this up for now and get back to work. I'm not going to make another video today. I'm not. I have to work. But I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Burton.